It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. And I apologize in advance if I mangle this video. I have taken so many cracks at this. I've been doing a lot of video editing and Photoshop work and stuff like that. And when I do the spatial stuff, language ability takes a crap. Mouth isn't mouthing properly right now. I'm doing my best. Because this video is it's a support video for people who are struggling with the social media experience right now because things are so ugly. Let me get to the response to feedback for the week and then I'll get into this. And the reason I'm talking about this so people know is that so many people have DM'd me needing to talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial related stress. Not because they believe strongly in one side or the other, just because the vitriol online has messed with them and they want it to stop. And they can't make it stop. And so they're stressed. That is who this video is for. Okay? I'm not going to focus on my personal opinions on the trial, even though I am following it. I watched 1.5 days full. I'm also, covering the, not covering, but following the Mick Michael Bryan Jr. Trial. What's that? Ahmaud Arbery's accused, so on and so forth. It's telling that one trial is the name of the defendant, the other trial is the name of the victim. Make of that what you will. But this ties into the sort of Wellness Wednesday mandate. Please read the imposter syndrome comments. They're interesting. Even people who said I was wrong and got mad at me. That's fine. And I like the fact that Comedy Gravy and Gerwich are now in jokes on this channel. That auto captions fail video is interesting. Fun. Mouth not mouthing. And the Shang-Chi video, for people who are interested, the patrons got that 3 weeks early, 2-3 weeks early. And they got a different version of it in terms of backgrounds and look and all that stuff. And I actually re-edited it with the backgrounds and font and everything like that based on their feedback. So that's sort of what happens on my my Patreon. You can actually shape the content of this channel. So if you're interested in doing that, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Existing patrons, you can change your support to annual now if you choose. I set that up for that function. If you only have so much money to spend and you're going, should I do the Song of Sparkle Muffin crowdfunding? Should I do the Patreon? Do the crowdfund, please. First of all, because you get that NPC character. That's cool. But also, it's just that's a priority right now. I feel funny double dipping on people, which is why I'm trying to give sort of meaningful feedback process to the patrons right now, because I really do appreciate people who do both. I understand people aren't made of money. I greatly, greatly appreciate when people support my content in any way. The Song of Sparkle Muffin crowdfund is 161% funded right now. That's great. It'll be 18 days to go. No, it'll still be 19 days to go by the time this airs. But yeah, and that's why this stuff happening right now. It's like, oh God, I mean, it's a good kind of exhausted, but I'm burned. I'm fried right now because crowdfunding campaigns are, skydiving for, all or nothing fundraising, right? Either you make your goal or you get nothing. We're at that. We've made our goals. It's like, pfft. But then with this emotionally fraught stuff going on, I get why people are bothered. I get why people are really disturbed by the vitriol online. I get why people are disturbed by the Rittenhouse case. He was 17. You guys know the John Kent Superman thing. My opinion is a 17-year-old boy is not a man. Same stance here. It's disturbing, right? The whole thing from start to finish. And seeing people lose their minds on social media, no matter what, I know for me, no matter what their opinion is, when I see people go way too far in their rhetoric, I'm like, yeesh. You walk away shaken. You walk away disturbed because, these are people who previously you thought were pretty on the ball. When you see them, this inflammatory rhetoric about the stuff that nobody but, the lawyers and the judge and the jury can control. And so, of course, they're going after the judge, right? The Rittenhouse thing. That's not going to solve anything. And again, I personally, this is me offering an opinion right now. The fact that the McMichael trial is getting a backseat. The McMichael and Brian Jr. trial is getting much less coverage, much less social media. I won't say less coverage because the media is covering it, but social media hasn't got its teeth into it like it has the Rittenhouse thing. And there are various reasons. I don't terribly care about breaking down the reasons. I care about getting people through it. Partially because I'm Canadian and our legal system works. Some people might say there's subtle differences. I don't think they're that subtle. We run on a British common law system, which means we don't have elected sheriffs or judges or prosecutors. We call them crown attorneys. That sounds so much shinier, right? Crown attorneys. There are meaningful differences in that system that I'm not going to get into right now because it's not relevant. Other than for me to say, I don't want to. I've talked to some lawyers in the US, they've given me their opinions on it. I listen, I take their word for it. They know more than I do. And this is where we get into, my kind of mindfulness stuff. Control what you can control. Don't try to control what you can't control. I can't control the verdict. I can't control what people are going to do about the verdict. What I can control, is I can offer some support to people who are really freaked out and are afraid everything's going to explode if people don't get an outcome they like. And that's a reasonable concern. It's a reasonable concern. I'm not just going to offer you a platitude and say, don't worry about it. Everything will work out. You guys know that's not me. What I am going to do is try to frame it and try to make you feel a little more in control of the anxiety. Part of the problem with social media is it takes a three-pronged approach to morality in that there are moral acts, immoral acts, and then morally neutral acts. This goes back to the Greeks, this three option system. On social media and in a lot of politicized movements, there is no amoral, no morally neutral action. Everything's either good or bad. There's nothing that's just a wash. It's just a push, right? That creates very, very charged environments when you remove that morally agnostic or morally neutral option from your decision making. And I think that's part of the reason some people are, I will say, behaving in ways that will not age well. We'll say that, right? There's a reason criminal defendants aren't tried in the court of public opinion. That is not to say the court of public opinion is always wrong. But there is what's legal and what's illegal. And then there's what's moral and immoral, right? And there's this whole in-between space that some people call lawful but awful. So it's legal to do, but it's morally reprehensible. And it seems like some people on social media have lost sight of that band of immoral but legal action. It's like if something's bad, it must be illegal, and that's not something with my background I'm comfortable with, because that was the argument people used to deny marriage equality to same-sex couples, right? This is the same argument behind not letting trans people use the bathroom they're most comfortable using, right? They find it, in terms of in the sense of the bathroom thing, it's not even the act itself is immoral. They're trying to prevent an immoral act. It's not how the law should not be used as a cudgel that way, right? It shouldn't be used as a fire hose to keep people away. Illegal action is illegal action, and the joke on there's a very small sliver of my family that was Methodist, I believe, and the joke about them was always, they didn't believe in sex because it might lead to dancing. That's what I think of when I see things like this. And obviously I'm opposed to that. But I can't control those things. I can only explain why I take issue with it. And of course, there's a whole other, that goes into, there's lawful but awful. And then there's unlawful but not wrong, right? Sometimes laws are unjust. And there are entire civil disobedience movements that deliberately break laws they believe to be unjust as a sort of shame tactic against the government. When you see perfectly good people getting arrested for stuff that's stupid, I mean, look at the change in attitudes towards marijuana, because the prisons were just getting filled with people who, in some cases didn't do anything else. It was just, a minor drug charge. These are big issues. But let's face it, this isn't the nuanced discussion that is going on online. There's no nuance to the stuff that's going on online. And I offered that there just to give people who are kind of freaked out something that sounds a bit more sane. But what do we do about the insanity? Well, one thing I find really useful is there's an alarm feature, a notify feature on Twitter, where it'll let you know when someone you've activated on this option tweets. So you don't have to just read your entire timeline. You can just read the tweets of people you've prioritized. I find that's very useful when I'm trying to avoid certain things on social media because they've gone nuts. I don't believe in telling people to stay off social media because too many people use social media as a social support. That's the way they keep in touch with people that they like to communicate with and make them feel better. People reached out to me on social media, right? And I guess what I can control in this, taking my own advice, is the fact that I can let the people who didn't reach out but are feeling the same way as the people who did reach out, that they're not alone in their anxiety. They're not alone in just wanting this stuff to be over. They're not alone in feeling yikes. That in itself can help. I also I also think there's a fear when people see public figures they otherwise respect losing themselves to emotion and things like this. They lose faith in the system as a whole and they start worrying, when is this going to blow up in my face, right? When are they going to come for me? When are they going to decide that I deserve to be locked up because I was tried in the press, not in front of a judge or jury, right? And this is where we get into words meaning different things to different people. The chattering classes, the political pundits, they're outraged about one thing this week and then they move on to being outraged about something else next week. Some of the things people get worked up are absolutely absurd. I just think that, what Ted Cruz thinks about the Super Friends is just an order of magnitude less important than an actual trial regarding people who did lose their lives, and the sense of, people can't just go around killing people without there being some sort of consequence to it, right? Fair. Totally reasonable distinction. Totally reasonable to say, hey, what conservatives think about Big Bird tweeting that he got the COVID vaccine is not the same as what went on in Kenosha, is that what it's called? Wisconsin that night. And I think that's part of it, right? As somebody who lives in Canada and was vaguely aware but didn't follow it too closely, and then I watched a few days of the trial and I saw some of that video and I was like, there are just people running around with guns in the street, and it's like the purge and what Canadian don't understand. But then, there are people in America going, don't understand, right? All fair. Again, this is really overwhelming. And I know I felt like I needed to watch because it was charged and I wanted to be able to make up my own mind. Is what my opinion is of the facts in the case and what I would do as a juror particularly relevant here? No, because I'm not on the jury. Which is why I really don't care to talk about it publicly, right? Who cares what I think? Because again, one, I'm not watching all of it, and that matters. Also, I'm not there. I'm watching it on YouTube. Also, I'm freaking Canadian. You can't control it. So, people have asked me, what do you do when people get super passionate about these things? And I said to this person, I try to ask questions instead of offering my own opinion, because people feel questions are less hostile. People feel like they're being heard when you ask questions. That's how I kind of stick handle stuff that maybe you don't really want to talk about, but somebody feels very strongly about. Now, sometimes people will demand a response from you. They need you to agree with them. And if you better agree with them or else. Those are really difficult situations. Sometimes I find it's better to not watch something or not follow something so that I can honestly say, I haven't seen it. I don't really have an opinion. You could say I'll take your word for it. Sometimes it's better to stay willfully ignorant because there's no winning. Sometimes you want to be informed because you want to make sure you're not being unduly swayed by the emotional charge. But if you're finding yourself showing any signs of a trauma response, I mean, you're feeling more jittery, you're having trouble sleeping, you're finding yourself obsessively reading about it or thinking about it, and it's distracting you from other things, anything like that, you have absolute permission to get some distance from this or any other news story. It's not worth your sanity. Working on the game, I don't even read gaming news the same way I used to. And you know what? I feel more chill because it's not the constant cycle of outrage. I don't have the news on the same way I used to. I feel like I need to do a little bit more to stay informed, but I'm giving myself some leeway because my responsibility right now is to write a cute and funny game that people find fun. And yeah, isn't going to insult your intelligence, but it's a universal theme. It's universal themes, so I don't need to stay super current in the news, right? These are also kind of good ways to practice the when someone shows you who they are, believe them principle. If you're bothered by the way someone is behaving over something like this, and they don't stop when you say, look, I don't want to talk about this. I don't know enough about it. Can we please change the subject? That's a real early warning sign about things. And you might not be able to get away from that person completely because they're a coworker, or, family member or something like that. But you can set up some boundaries in your own head. How much, you let that person in, how much information you give that person about you, so on and so forth. Sometimes these can be good things because they give you an early warning sign about someone, so you can kind of guard yourself and back away even slightly if you can. So this was the wake-up call, not something way, way, way more personal. Makes sense? So maybe use that as a positive. Okay, found out an easier way as opposed to a harder way. Maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know. Let me know. What are you guys using to cope with this very, very stressful news stuff? I'm not going to do the Patreon again because, again, boss fight, Song of Sparkle Muffin. Bossfightgame.com. We've got a mailing list up there. I hope this helped people feel a bit better about things, because my heart absolutely goes out to anybody who's feeling very stressed about this stuff. I wasn't going to talk about this, and then it's like I don't have to talk about the nuts and bolts of the case to talk about people who are stressed that it exists at all, right? Some people are going to have problems with the line I'm drawing here. Some people are going to take it in good faith and see it for what it is. That's a good thing, It lets me know where the best use of my time lies, right? Right. And hopefully something helped here. Because there's a lot of really good people who watch this channel, and some of them were the ones that reached out to me and it's like, I just want this to be over. And there are probably a lot more people who are just suffering in silence, and hopefully this makes you feel a little bit better. worst case scenario, it will end. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen and life will go on, right? It just might be bumpy for a while. Really interested to see your comments on this stuff. Again, not going to do the Patreon. I'll go to the Feedback Friday thing instead. Okay. Monday, watch on Monday to see when live streams are returning. Thanks for watching.